I wanted to take a moment to check in on our 2020 presidential hopefuls, given that we're now probably less than a year out from most of them launching their presidential campaigns. Looks like Kamala Harris is hanging out with Israel's war criminal prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and would you look at that, so is Kirsten Gillibrand and Cory Booker. And Cory Booker is also hanging out with millionaire Democratic Party donor Stephen Klubeck, who threatened to cut off funding for the Democratic Party if they do, in fact, move left. Now, let's check in on Bernie Sanders. Oh, would you look at that, he's still representing the people. So last week, he teamed up with labor groups and Disney workers to call on Disney to stop being so greedy, to actually pay their workers a living wage and allow them to unionize.
And shaming the Disney Corporation, shaming them. Because I want to hear the moral defense. We're in a church now. I want to hear the moral defense of a company that makes $9 billion in profits, $400 million for their CEOs, and has a 30-year worker going hungry. Tell me how that is wrong.
Now, besides actually showing up and standing in solidarity with Disney workers, he posted a video on Twitter showing just how greedy Disney really is, and this was pretty disturbing because I didn't know all of this was going on.
Disney, the happiest place on earth. But is it really? Bob Iger certainly would argue so. He's the company's co-chairman and CEO, raking in over $36 million last year alone. He also received $100 million in stock when his company bought Fox, and he could make another $423 million within just 4 years if he delays his retirement. Unfortunately, that seems to be the extent of Disney's magic. According to a recent survey, nearly 73% of Disney employees are not making enough money for their most basic needs. Roughly 1 out of 10 Disneyland workers reported being homeless in the past 2 years, meaning they didn't have a place of their own to sleep, while 56% reported concerns of being evicted from their current residence. 68% of workers surveyed are food insecure, meaning they lack sufficient access to safe and nutritious food. But hey, after the Trump administration's tax cuts were approved, Disney promised to give its workers a $1,000 bonus. Only now they're refusing to pay it to over 37,000 theme park employees, unless they agree to a contract forcing them to work for starvation wages. Disney's workers' average pay is just $10.71 an hour.
Right now I'm making $10 an hour, and that is not nearly enough to support myself fully. I have rent and credit card bills and car bills to pay, and I'm not making nearly enough right now, just like every other cast member here.
Now they want them to sign a contract increasing their pay by just 50 cents an hour in order to reap the so-called benefits of the Trump tax cut. So, get a massive tax break, give your CEO and shareholders an obscene amount of money, and pay your workers starvation wages. Disney officials have repeatedly Hakuna Mata'd their way out of scrutiny, denying that they underpay their workers and claiming that everything's just fine. However, there's been evidence time and time again that the company really doesn't care to improve their employees' benefits. In 2016, they laid off 250 IT workers who had been vital in the creation and implementation of Disney's Orlando landmark. That wasn't all. Employees were forced to train their replacements. Immigrant workers brought into the U.S. employed at a lower cost, or face losing an offered bonus.
The theme park is now expected to change its motto from the happiest place on earth to simply place on earth.
Business drives our economy. We create jobs, we give back to communities, we create great experiences for people.
Sure, that's what businesses should be doing. Unfortunately, we're seeing corporate CEOs like Bob Iger and others hoard thousands of millions of dollars every year, while their workers get left with a short end of the stick.
Now, fighting for Disney workers wasn't the only thing that Bernie Sanders was doing, because actually later in that same day, he teamed up with Sean King to talk about mass incarceration and why we need to reform America's broken criminal justice system.
All over this country, we are just beginning, to see the American people stand up and make it clear that it makes no sense at all that we have 2 million people in jail today more than communist China. That it makes no sense at all that those numbers are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. And that it makes no sense that in a nation with so many pressing needs that we spend $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. And what the American people from coast to coast are now saying, it is time for real reform of this disastrous system. As all of you know, the Pledge of Allegiance talks about liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all, which are very fine words. But what we are saying today is we want more than words. We want liberty and justice to be what this country is about. I think all of you know that today we don't have liberty and justice for all. We have one system of justice for the crooks on Wall Street whose greed and illegal behavior almost destroyed our entire economy and resulted in millions of people losing their jobs and their homes and their life savings. And somebody correct me here, but I don't recall that one of those crooks went to jail. But then we have a different system of justice for a kid who smokes marijuana or another kid who steals a pair of sneakers. We have one system of justice if you are white, and another system of justice if you are black or brown or Native American.
Now, if you watched the live stream of the event, the reaction that he got was great. The comments, a lot of them were just, praising Bernie and saying number 46 in reference to him being elected after Trump. I think he's not just fighting for the people. Slowly but surely, he is transforming American society. He's getting us to think differently about politics. He's getting people to stop scapegoating immigrants for their economic woes or the poor for getting welfare. He's getting people to think about the system itself and how the economy is rigged against them, because we have a system, we have an economy that incentivizes mass greed. This is what capitalism does. It exploits workers at the behest of the elite class, and he's getting us to think about it in these terms. It's simple. So Bernie Sanders, in touring the country and fighting for normal Americans, he's showing that he is the true progressive ahead of the 2020 presidential election. Individuals like Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand and Cory Booker, they may talk the talk, but they're not walking the walk like Bernie Sanders. He's setting the bar, and they're forced to follow Bernie Sanders. He says we should have Medicare for all. They say we should have Medicare for all, and that's great. That's a step in the right direction. But understand, if you want the true progressive, that individual is only Bernie Sanders. You will get no one as authentic and genuine as him who cares about the American people. So I was really impressed that Bernie Sanders, at the age of 152, has this much energy to do all of this in one day, in one weekend. He went on Bill Maher's show the day before, too. I don't know how he does it. And also, he got yelled at by Alex Jones at LAX. So I don't know how he has the energy to do this. I really don't. I hope I'm half as energetic as Bernie Sanders when I'm his age. But this is someone who, he puts his passion and policy priorities above his own well-being. And that is commendable. That's someone who I can't wait to support in 2020.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.